Hello folks, I hope you're all doing well. I decided to step outside for this week's video. It's got a pretty nice view back here. Definitely enjoying things here in New Mexico. I wanted to take a look at a simple idea this week. There are a lot of chords out there, as I'm sure you have noticed by now, and some of them are more challenging than others. I just wanted to highlight some of the more simple chords, specifically chords that you can play with simply one finger. Now, you have the PDF that says one finger chords. You'll definitely want that handy as we just kind of start off by walking through each one of these chords. So first off, we've got the A7 chord, like so. You might see the A7 chord show up in songs here and there. Maybe songs that are played in the key of D. And that A7 is followed by an A7 sus4. So the A7, we are playing the first fret of the C string and everything else is open. But the A7 sus4, we're playing the second fret of that C string. It has a little bit of a different sound. Those suspended chords resolve nicely, so the suspended chord would sound nice going back to the A7. So if you're playing a song that you're hanging on that A7 for a long time, it can be nice to throw in that fourth. It's not going to sound great in every context, so use your judgment and use your ear. But that is yet another chord that you can use that only requires one finger to play. We have our A minor chord, of course, where we're just playing the second fret of the G string and everything else is open. Lovely little chord. All right, we're going to move on from the A family to the C family. So you're probably aware of your C chord, your regular old C major, where we're holding the third fret of the A string. And we also have a few others that we can play by just moving our fret on the A string. So instead of the third fret, if we play the fifth fret of that A string, we get a chord called C add 9. Now again, I can go back and forth between this C add 9 and C, and in most cases, it's going to sound pretty good. So that C add 9 can be a nice way to spice up your C chord. If you're playing C for a bunch of measures and you're getting a little tired of just sitting on that one C, you can add in that C add 9. And it's not going to be too disruptive in most cases where you're just playing the C chord. After that, we have C major 7th. I love major 7th chords. They sound very, very dreamy, and I really like that sound. The C major 7th isn't necessarily going to work in every instance. If you're playing in the key of C major, then chances are that C major 7th will work. But there are a lot of songs where C7 will pop up, and C major 7 and C7 don't sound great right next to each other. So you kind of have to try out C major 7th on a case-by-case basis. But of course, if you're playing solo, if you're just accompanying yourself singing and you wanna jazz things up a bit, you can change that C to a C major 7, no problem. And of course, we have that C7 as well, which you've likely encountered, where we're holding the first fret of the A string. So C, is 3rd fret of the A string, C add 9, 5th fret of the A string, C major 7th, 2nd fret of the A string, and C7 is 1st fret of the A string. Now, major 7 and what we call dominant 7 chords have a pretty distinctly different sound, right? It's only one note difference and 1 fret away, but it really changes the vibe of that chord. Our major 7, like again, I kind of describe it as a dreamlike sound. Throw that major, that add 9 to the major 7, get some nice sounds there. But the C7 has a bit more of a bluesy kind of sound, maybe a little bit rock and roll. It's kind of got an edgier sound. All right, just a couple more. We're moving on from the C family to the F family. I've got 2 Fs to show you here. We have an F add 9 chord. To play the F add 9, all I'm doing is holding my index finger on the 1st fret of the E string. Normally for an F chord, I would have the 2nd fret of the G, but I am omitting that particular note in favor of the open G. But it adds an extra texture. It's going to work in a lot of places that the F chord would work as well. And it can also sound really nice bouncing back and forth, just like we were doing with the C chords. If you're playing F for a long time and you want to change it up a little bit, you can add some movement to the chord simply by lifting up one finger. Doesn't take much to add a lot of color there. And then we have the F major 9 chord. Okay, now, big name, but it's a really easy one to play. Here, I am just holding down the 5th fret of my C string. This has got a very interesting sound, right? There's a little bit of dissonance going on in there, but it still has that dreamy quality. It's a very complex chord, and it's because it's kind of like combining 2 types of chords. We saw the major 7th before, right? We saw the C major 7th, and we saw the C9. Well, if we try to incorporate the notes from a major 7 and an add 9, we get this major 9 chord. Really cool. So again, that's the 5th fret of my C string. Everything else is open. So again, that's another opportunity to add some color or mystery to a song, or just change things up. If you're like, you know what, I want something to sound a little bit different today. Instead of playing an F, I'm going to try this F add 9, or maybe this F major 9. And I'll wait for that car to go. Have a sip of my coffee. The last chord on the page is in the G family of chords, and it's set aside a little bit because it's kind of a bonus chord. If you look really closely, you might notice that chord looks the same as another chord that we've already seen. This chord, this G6/9 or G6/9 chord, is the same as that A7 sus4, right? It's all the same notes. There are going to be many instances where the same chord with the same notes inside of it will have a different name. We're going to see that actually a lot on the ukulele. There are a number of reasons for that, but we're going to see it a lot on ukulele in particular, and that is because we only have 4 strings on our ukulele here. All right, we have only 4 strings on our ukulele. That means we can only play 4 notes at the same time. Now, some of these chords get really big. For instance, the F major 9 chord is a 5-note chord. You would have an F, an A, a C, an E, and a G. All of those notes make up that chord. So when we're playing those bigger chords on ukulele, we have to leave some notes out. And there are strategies to which note to leave out. We're not really going to get into that today, but that's exactly what's happening here with the G6-9 chord and the A7 sus4. So let's look at the G first, because we're talking about G, right? So the G6-9 chord is a G major chord, which consists of the notes G, B, and D. And then we add the 6th note of the G scale into the mix, which is an E note. And then we add the 9th note of the G scale, which is an A. So those are the 5 notes that would make the G6-9 chord. Now, again, we don't have 6 strings. You know, we're on a ukulele. We've only got 4, so we have to drop out two notes to make this chord possible. In this case, I'm playing a G note, a D note, an E note, and an A note. Now, a lot of times when we're figuring out which chords we want, or which notes we want to drop out, or which notes we want to keep in, the important notes are going to be the ones that make the chord unique. So the 6 and the 9, my E and my A in this case, are the important notes that I want. And that G6-9 can be used in a lot of places where a normal G could be used. It's not going to work everywhere, but it'll work in a lot of places where G works. It'll work in a lot of places where a G6 will work. It's going to have some cool applications. The A7 sus4, that chord would consist of an A note, a D note, an E note, and a G note. So A, D, E, G. Yeah. And that would be a 4-note chord. Here, I actually have all of those notes. I have my A, I have my D on the 2nd fret of the C string, I have an E, open E string, and I have the G on my open G string. So all those notes happen to be there for this. But depending on the context of the song where the chord happens, it could be given a different name. Now again, you'll see that a lot on ukulele, especially when we get into like these bigger 9 chords or 11 chords you might see, or 13s, flat this and sharp that. You might encounter these things that look very similar. Hey, that looks just like that other chord that I've seen. And that's going to be totally normal. Every diminished chord has 4 different names. All these diminished 7th chords where you have to cram all your fingers in there like that. So this is a C diminished 7. This right here is a C diminished 7. It can also be called an F sharp diminished 7. It could be called an E flat diminished 7, or it could be an A diminished 7. So all of those chords live right here in this one shape. In addition to the 1-finger chord sheet that I gave you, I also included an MP3 with a song that I wrote called Take What You Need, as well as the lyrics and chords to go along with it. Now, I wrote this song specifically around the idea that we can adapt the F and G chords to 1-finger chords. We can easily adapt that F to an F add 9, and that G to a G6-9. And it'll all work So play a little bit of it for you so you can see my hands moving to each of these chords. It takes some time to hear them out. Voices raised in love that somehow turn into doubt. Gather up your thoughts and pack them away. The world won't end if you took just one holiday, or maybe two. Take what you need. Go outside and bring that book that you've been meaning to read. So I hope you have fun playing around with these chords, whether it is to simplify something that you are playing, to condense maybe one of those chords that's a little bit tougher to grab with your fingers and play something that still sounds good but isn't as demanding on your fingers. Or if it's just to find another way to expand your sound. These are really, really pretty chords. Some of them are complex chords, both in terms of music theory and sound. So they're really useful and fun to have in your back pocket. Keep on strumming, and I will talk to you again next week. Take care.